Good evening, good morning to you, beautiful friends, cousins, brothers, and sisters, whatever you want to identify as, wherever you happen to be in the world. Thank you so much for taking a moment to join me and welcome. If it's your first time, welcome back. If not, truly, I appreciate you just taking a moment to step outside, get a bit meta, and sit with some thoughts and some feelings, and maybe consider some new perspectives. I know the topic for today's video, which quite literally it is what we make it, and it's an uncomfortable truth sometimes, amongst other things. But pardon me, I'm such a savage, aren't I? I think that I've quite literally come to observe, just even in this process of like growing and healing and evolving and understanding just the power that we wield in how we choose to view and assign meaning to certain things. You know, why we like what we like, why we do what we do, etc. I apologize, I have a tickle in my throat. The weather's been very interesting where I am at in the world. And who knows? Maybe we're all taking a moment to clear some throat chakra blockages. So, by all means, maybe let's take a moment to breathe in and envision bright, bold, beautiful blue light just right on our vocal cords and our throat. Just. Sorry, not necessarily trying to inception you, but in the process of potentially trying to clear my own throat chakra and not necessarily have to go grab some throat lozenges. By golly, it's working. Be a placebo effect or the power of intention or the fact that the ice just I regulated myself, what have you. I am yeah. I need to get my life together. I look like a Death Eater or a cult leader. I've got the most fabulous robe on, but that's just it. I kind of look like Voldemort. Going totally sideways. Um, but no, just truly, it is what we make it. Again, cult leader, Voldemort, person of faith, minimalist, uh, what have you. It can sometimes be the bitterest pill to swallow, but it's wild, just in so many ways. The first step for me, just reclaiming agency. And there isn't necessarily any particular catalyst other than I was on YouTube, and as ever, I'm an HSP. So, man, I tell you what, let a breeze hit me the wrong way, and I feel like I can get in like my attitude. And trust me when I tell you that I'm always taking a minute to kind of hold some space. Like, girl, come on. Like, are you being for real right now? Like, I get it, you're having a moment, but in the totality of things, is this as big as you're making it, or are you potentially just personally affronted? And this is a conversation that I have with myself quite a bit, not, in a million ways, insert, however, adaptive coping mechanisms. I speak to these things because hopefully you kind of do it too in your own ways, and I'll own it. And especially if you don't, then I mean, food for thought. So, a great mindfulness technique. Um, Name your brain, as silly as it sounds. So I'll go with Patricia, and this is a nod to James McAvoy in Split. It's not me, it's Patricia. So let's say that I'm getting stressed out at work because maybe I'm having issues logging in to my systems, and right away I get like 20 emails, and I already just have a super huge task list on top of already, daily tasks that are assigned to me. Perhaps I say, and let's say I'm just like, and I want to start getting frustrated and angry. Then I say, you know what, Patricia, not today. Patricia, I can't. I understand sometimes it's not me, it's Patricia, but Patricia, we can't do this. Like, we're gainfully employed, yada yada. And just again, the power of refocusing, because that's just it. Like this polarized thinking. I don't know. I'm older. I'm long in the tooth. I'm a child of the '80s, and I don't know if it's just even in like the shift of media representation, in the ways that we communicate, in the lack of prioritization on critical thinking. I mean, again, pick your poison. It is what you make it. um, it's we just seem to be very split in our thinking. We seem to forget, i.e., book. This book, it's a book, it's a source of knowledge, right? Isn't it? But isn't it also a story? Isn't it also art? Couldn't it also be, heat if I needed to burn it? Couldn't it be income if I wanted to try and potentially liquidate it? So couldn't it be art? In fact, I believe that, there are artists that have resculpted, paper into flowers and just what have you. So perception and just even what we are doing, how we are assigning things. And I guess it's important to me. And it's important, especially because, like, I understand that even as I mentioned, being like an HSP and potentially seeing, content or a thing about celebrities or seeing what have you. It was actually there was one. It was a girl and she was beautiful, but she was posting like without filters, 33, no fillers, what have you. And she had a crap ton of makeup on, and that was honestly part of the catalyst. So you guys get to see me ET phono. I was like, girl, come back to me in about a decade, okay? I'm 40, almost 41. And again, not that it's the whole vanity and just even what have you, but in an attempt to continue to always be as authentic as possible. Like people are so fake and monetizing your, oh, you have to see me at my best and it has to be scripted and it has to be the right take and always success, I'm amazing, yada yada. It's wild. We are denying ourselves our humanity. And it's interesting because, like, as a person of faith, not to get corny, I feel like it always comes back to that. And I swear to you, I've kind of mentioned it in other videos. And part of the reason that I think it's important to me is because at one time I was so disconnected from my faith. And I started a thought in another video and never necessarily got to finish it. But I tell you what, I have unloaded some things in prayer that I don't know that I'd necessarily be able to say to other humans. Like when I felt abandoned by God, or when I maybe felt like I was being cursed or not necessarily blessed because of certain dynamics or my mindset, or just not being able to focus on how I was able to reclaim power and agency. I have literally, I have said some things that I, I'm not proud of. I've honestly probably said some more terrible things, again, in prayer to God than to other humans. Like, let me be real. Allegedly, I can't hide from you anyway. And let's say that's a good first step. Let's say you aren't even a person of faith like I am. Um, you know, just having somebody to talk to. And here's the interesting thing. As I said, I've unpacked some things, and I stand before you, here, not smited. Um, And I do. I believe that God, the omnipotent source, loves us so much that we are touched in the ways that we need to be touched. And that sounds so perverse. And truly, even sex magic, things like that. Thank goodness this isn't like 500 years ago, right? When I'd be burned at the stake. But that's where even I look into things like the Pistis Sophia and the people that historically speaking were burned at the stake, the Valentinian Christians, the types that taught more to agency, that actually aligned with the teachings of Christ. The kingdom of God is within you. Why do you look to me? You can do what I do, even greater. The Pistis Sophia is a great read for everybody. The Lamentations, Sophia, the 13th Aeon, falling from the light with which we all come forth. Interesting. I feel like there's such a history of patriarchy, especially when you think of, the goddess Iana, the oldest recorded mythos, so to speak, and especially the oldest recorded resurrection story. I have to wonder if deep down there, is potentially some deep rooted misogyny, and we will unpack that at some point. I'm still, excuse me, in a process of healing and have some fantastic connections in my life that are males. But just because of other connections that maybe weren't so great, I'm definitely struggling to not necessarily be like, all men. And obviously, we shouldn't generalize regardless. But, when I think of things like the pay disparity and just to even the emotional labor, just the contributions of women to society, the ways that, health, reproductive issues, our monthly time into which we are still continuing, to be so active and involved in society. Again, it is what you make it in certain practices and observations. When a woman was on her moon cycle, she was considered so holy that she couldn't necessarily be around things, or considered cursed and shouldn't be around things. And yet nowadays in modernity, we are expected to just show up, and you see videos of like period pain simulators and how men are just like, and they don't even necessarily think about that. For example, I might lose some followers, and I'm sorry, dudes, but just take a moment to really think about that, okay? So the closest thing I could think of, outside of necessarily getting kicked repeatedly in, the kidneys and the ovaries until you pee pee blood for a week straight, would be that essentially your dominant hand, so let's say you're a lefty, let's say you're a righty, you get your thumb cut off for a week. And randomly it just starts splurting blood, and you're just expected to function. You have to show up, you still work. It doesn't necessarily matter that it hurts. It doesn't matter that your performance might be hindered. Depending on what you do, you function. And you do it well. And you keep doing what you're doing, you stud. And then let's not even consider pregnancy, carrying the babies, how we still continue to show up, just etc. And again, this is men. I understand that you have your own struggles, particularly stoicism, etc., which we need to unpack, because trust me, the things that you think are tough and hard, for example, as women, we wouldn't necessarily agree, but I don't know, maybe our perceptions of toughness. And if we do the science behind this, for example, you could look at the fact that like women have higher pain tolerances, for example. When you look at times of crises, women tend to be more loyal, i.e., incarceration, terminal illness. Women will stick around when men are not. What is toughness? Loyalty, endurance, not necessarily strength, but if we want to go strength, technically speaking, don't get me in a bad mood when your head's between my thighs. Because as much as the hands, let's be honest. Again, science, data. If I were to kick you in the face, no, but we do have leg strength. So it's very interesting the ways that we observe strength, or that we genderize traits. Talks for another day as we continue to progress and journey in humanity, and our observations of humanity, and socio sociology, socioeconomics, just all of it. Who knows? It really is a great time to be alive. As I've posted in other videos, it could be crisis point. We could be on the point of collapse, and we might destroy ourselves, and hopefully the next, what have you, will do better. But I have hope, and I have faith, and I feel like, we're starting to become very conscious, and very aware. And so again, it's what you make of it. It's in those moments where, you are confronted with the option of maybe taking it to hell, or, rising higher. And I will unpack a little bit. I There is a person in my life who, for all intents and purposes, you would think, because of like roles and assignments, that inherently we would be close, because of the way that fate orchestrated our connection. And we are not necessarily. And a point of contention with this person, they didn't gift receiving was one of their love languages. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this person is slightly narcissistic, amongst other things. But, it is what you make it. Exercises in power and control. When last I spoke to this person, they chose to send me a message telling me how they perceived me to be a certain series of things, and had mentioned that they'd put some distance between us. Pardon me, I'm rolling a cigarette. And that it was conscious. So, okay, cool. So then, knowing that gift giving had been a point of contention, I found the perfect gift to send this person. And this person, there was a movie that was based off of a book that I used to quote to this person. And funnily enough, it used to upset this person. It's not funny, like, haha. In fact, honestly, I might be a little psycho because this even started when I was young. And I figured that this might be a way to kind of trigger or upset this person. So I would quote this to this person. And I was out antiquing and I happened to find this book. And I had this moment, and I tell you, it's like the media representation when like the devil and the angel is sitting on your shoulder. And I was like, yo, get this present. This person constantly is upset that you don't get them presents. Send them a present. Send them this present. And then the angel is like, look, you little demon, not today. Sure, this is true. You could do an Amazon gift card. I would never do an Amazon gift card at this point, honestly. It would hurt my soul too much, to be honest with you, but I think you understand my point. It would be better served to get them a $15 gift card to Mackers than to even to go through the cost of sending them this particular book. It is what you make it. And sure, I could justify that I'm trying to meet their need, etc., and dismiss the fact that that would be triggering as all get up. And not today, demons, and I'm not doing it. And this is my round of applause. I'm sharing it with you guys. And things like this happen to me quite a bit, to be honest with you. And again, the worst part is, you know, technically speaking, sure, I understand that it could be triggering to this person, but also if I'm wanting to honor you and give you a gift and love you in my own way, even if it is being a little snarky, a little spicy, then how do you have the right to deny me of that? What what draws the line? And then there are dynamics of narcissism and what have you. And this is where, funnily enough, as opposed to like, and this person and I would say they love me. I don't doubt that. They experienced a lot of trauma, and a lot of our connection has been trauma bond. And in that, unfortunately, in past dynamics, it has been in the conflict and giving into the conflict and escalating it, adding fuel to the fire, and proving my love, i.e., no, let me tell you how you're wrong, and let me fight for you to prove to you my value. What? Come on. Like, at what point are we even, and to be clear, it wasn't even in like a, let's have a dialogue. It was like a, this is what I'm feeling. You're blocked. And I must own, I have blocked people. So, for example, especially being a highly sensitive person, if I'm incredibly busy, I come from a background of trauma. And so I'm so old that, like, when beepers first came out, I was actually one of the first recipients of a pager with the prerequisites and the conditioning that I had. Literally, my father was like, you have 60 seconds. If you do not call me back within a minute of me texting you, you're grounded or you're going to get your butt beat. So there's always that in me. Like, it's been a lot of work to have to remember, like, hey, you don't have to respond to people right away just because you notice that you got a message. Like, take a deep breath, keep focusing. It's not rude, it's not disrespectful. Like, you're safe. Um, and so I have at times, just not necessarily being able to emotionally regulate and process my best and in the healing process. And even just being mad and petty, I've blocked. That is something that actively for almost a year now, like AA, right? And not that I specifically write it down every day on my calendar, but I do make a point to try and journal and be mindful, to be clear. So it's probably been a little over a year, I would say, that I've not felt that need because I understand. At the end of the day, it makes me a big fat hypocrite. Like, I am not so weak that I can't, if all else fails, read your message and choose not to respond. I owe it to myself because of who I am. A level, calm person of dignity that I would never want to dehumanize or disrespect anyone is to not hear them, literally. And again, not necessarily, sometimes, i.e., not sending the present, it might be better to not respond. And I don't know, to be honest. I don't know that I'm that kind of person. I've never necessarily been put in that position just yet. In fact, funnily enough, there was an instance recently to where I feel like the universe was testing me to see if perhaps I had learned my lesson and should have ignored a message, and I didn't. And all's well that ends well. But I do. I sometimes, I don't know. I can't. We are all going through things, and I'm not so weak that I'm not going to find a way to cope. Like if I don't cope, I'll die. Like for real. Like I'll have an aneurysm or a heart attack or something. Like no. I am much like the bird does not trust the branch that it lands on to support its weight. I trust my wings. So, on that note, I'm going to keep this one pretty short and sweet. I sometimes can go on, and I'm going to meditate before I get to bed and whatnot, but I don't know. Like I said, I've been struggling to find content that is stimulating for me. And so, all 8 of you, all 4 of you, 20 of you, just, all 30 subscribers. Gosh, I appreciate you. Thank you for your engagement, and likes, subscribes, all of that. It's, as I've stated so many other times before, it's medicine. And I would never necessarily want to not be, I'm a person, you're my cousins. While some people might need to be treated like drunk uncles, we're cousins. So it's I am you is like the Beatles. I am you as you are me, and we are all in this together, truly. So thank you for taking a moment to just co-create and just sit with me and just breathe, and we're doing all right. We really are. It's painful sometimes. It's so beautiful. It is everything, and we're still here. And so many unexpected surprises, so many things, and just please keep on keeping on, because in these times now more than ever, this is such sacred work just to be here. Like, I'm so grateful for you. You don't even understand. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to feel it. But I believe, I feel it's sacred. It's sacred times. Mwah!